So we have a few Drashes this morning, I think. Marco has one, and I'm gonna kind of give a summary of an article that I read. And maybe Tzafa, I'm not sure. Ezra, okay, good. All right, let's find it. So so this week's Torah portion is called Yitro, and that is the father-in-law of Moshe, right? And he was in Midian, and that's where Moshe went after he fled from Egypt when he was younger. And so, this article was written by an Orthodox rabbi. I can get you the name if you want to read the full thing. But he's going into the Midrash. The Midrash is like the oral stories that have been passed down through generations. And there's a story. There's like a story that was passed along that's talked about Yitro. Now, and I guess the question is, who was the first convert of our Jewish history? And according to our tradition, it is Yitro. So Yitro is the first convert because he came there after he heard about all the things that happened in Egypt and with Pharaoh and stuff, and he came, and then he was converted at that time. That's the Midrash. That's the story. And also, often, I don't know, sometimes in the Torah, not everything is chronological. Like, so something will happen, but then it might have happened after the fact. So I think if they also, the sages have also feel like this part is not chronological, so that even though it says that Yitro left, they feel I guess they teach that he's actually stayed until after the Ten Commandments and the Torah was given, and then he left. So even though the Torah says he already left, so that some things are not chronological, and so anyways, so one interesting thing about Yitro was another part of Midrash is that he had many names. So Rabbi Shlomo Itzhak, which we may also know as Rashi, he talks about these many names, right? And he has 7 names according to the Midrash. So his 7 names are Reuel, Yeter, Yitro, Chovav, Chever, Keni, and Putiel. Those are his 7 names, and they all have different meanings and things, and you can go into all that in a different midrash. I mean, a different talk about it, or you can learn about it yourself. But we're gonna talk about 2 of his names. So 2 of his names, and the midrash, it says, when a Jew embraces his Judaism, he accepts the 613 commandments. That's what we have, right? And so the letter, when you're accepting it, you're accepting those 613. And but as there was a letter that was they were saying his first name, Yitro's first name, one of his first names was Yeter, and then if you add a vav to that word Yeter, it becomes Yitro. Or it can become the word Yitro. And so one of the questions is, well, why do we add a vav? Why was that vav added? And another one of the sages, Maharal of Prague, breaks down the schematria. So Yeter holds a value of 610, and when you add the vav, it becomes 616. So then you're like, well, that doesn't equal 613, right? And it has extra 3. Why? What's up with this? Right? And obviously, our sages always come up with some great idea, right? And so I think this was a pretty cool idea. So they said, well, a natural born just keeps keeps the 613, but a convert has these 3 additional mitzvot that he has to do, and they're not listed in that 613, right? So these 3 extra ones are circumcision, and a mikvah immersion, and for conversion, and a sacrificial offering to bring to the temple when he is converted. So that's the 3 extra mitzvot that a convert has to complete in order to convert. So 616. That's where they get that. Pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. But another interesting thing that this rabbi was talking about was saying that he said that all of us were descendants of converts. So everybody essentially has come from converts. None of us has has always just been a Jew. I mean, we have, but we are all descendants from converts. So someone had to actually accept the tradition, right? So accept the commandments and accept to become part of Hashem's people. And I feel like, and this wasn't even mentioned in the article, but this is my own idea, is that at Mount Sinai was kind of a conversion experience for these people, right? For all the children of Israel. First they went through the Red Sea, which they consider like as like a mikvah, and then they came out, and then they were given the Torah, and they said, we accept the Torah, And so it's really cool idea. And they weren't even circumcised yet, which is kind of interesting, right? Like it happened later on when they got into the land, I think. And so so that is interesting. I guess you, in a sense, you can become a convert before you're circumcised, at least in this little section here. And then, but you should still be circumcised. I'm not going to say that. Don't do that. And anyway, so that was a very interesting article. And another part of the article that kind of caught my attention that I guess I never really thought about or heard about it before. I might have heard it, but I never really thought about it. So this time I thought about it, and it said that there will be no converts when after Mashiach comes. Well, we believe Mashiach has come already, but after his second coming, when he is ruling, right? Because then people may just be converting just because he's the ruler, and there won't be like a true heart conversion. It'll just be a conversion for gain or something like that. So in a sense, it's better to convert before he comes. That way you can be part of his people. Of course, all the world is his people, but is chosen, his representatives, I guess, is what we are, right? And so I guess the takeaway is look at Yitro's example and see how when he sees Hashem working, he goes and follows it. Travels all the way from Midian to find out what's going on, to be part of the Jewish people, according to this tradition, anyways. And it's a beautiful, wonderful story that encourages any who want to convert. So that's what I have to share. There's so much in this Torah portion. That's just like the very beginning of it, right? Like there's so much more to it. So hopefully the others that are giving drashes can expand upon the rest. So Shabbat Shalom. Who wants to go next? Yes, sir.
Shalom. We're talking about Yitro's and Yitro's conversion, but before that, there is a teaching right there. But there is a teaching before Yitro appears. That is, Hashem says, tell them to stay away from women for 3 days. It says, wash yourself, wash your clothes, and be ready. In reality, what it's saying is what we should be doing on every Shabbat. The clothes that we use on every Shabbat, they should be special. They should be already put away like Wednesday or Thursday, and then you say this is already designated for Shabbat, because we have to put everything, all the special things for Shabbat. I'm not going to put the same clothes that I use during the week to do in Shabbat. It's supposed to be special, So we have to make sure that it's proper and that it's proper. But we can go as far as go like Wednesday or Thursday, say, okay, this is what I'm going to wear. And that's already designated for that holy occasion. That's one thing. And another thing is in Yitro, why did Yitro did the conversion? Because he didn't saw anything. He didn't saw the parting of the sea. He didn't saw the plagues. He didn't saw anything. The same thing that happened with us. We did not witness anything. So why did he say, okay, he says, now I know. I think that's the word he says. Now I know, okay, but what did he saw? He didn't, what happened is that he understood that Hashem was the biggest God from what he knew, okay, and that's the trick word here is understood, because a lot of people know the Torah. You can tell them, hey, tell me what Matthew 5:17 says, blah blah, what Lucas and then blah blah, they know, they learn and they memorize, but do they understand what it means? And in this case, what happened is that Yitro understood exactly what was that he was the real God, not the one he used to, and that's why he says that he was the first convert. Okay, but he was in the same position that we are. We didn't saw anything. We just heard. We just read it on the Torah. So it is important. Not only yes, we have to know the Torah, but we have to understand, because once we understand, we make it part of ourselves, and nobody is going to move our ground. When somebody says, something about Shabbat, I always say, you know what? Let me put it this way. It's not negotiable. It's not even a subject to talk about Shabbat, okay? Because why? I understood that the Shabbat is not mine. We cannot be doing what we used to do before. I come from Catholicism, and okay, we went to the church, blah blah. They took our money, and then let's go to the beach. Let's party. That is not the essence of Shabbat. Shabbat is not ours. It's Hashem's. That's why he says we work. He got 6 days to do everything we want, within legal, but to do everything. So Shabbat is his. We cannot do anything. That's why we don't even talk about secular things on Shabbat. We shouldn't. Why? It's not yours. We should be talking about Torah. We should be talking about things that Hashem did for us, but we cannot be talking about secular things in Shabbat, in His day. We got 6 days for the rest of the things for us. I might want to say. There was talking about midrash. I always say that the sages had too much time on their hands, And why? If we look at Moshe's background, Moshe spent 40 years on palace. He knew languages, religion. He knew everything, and the art of war, everything that. Then one of the questions is why he did not thought about when Yitro says, "Hey, this is what you're doing is not good. That is not good. You should delegate." The question is why did he didn't thought about it? Well, maybe he did. Maybe he thought about it, but remember, who was Moshe? He was a humble man. So he was says, it's not my place to change things. So that's one of the things. So it was his humility, or maybe it's a fear, because when it comes to God, Hashem's things, you have to be fearful, because the punishment could be death, literally. Okay. Or in the other explanation says that he just wanted to be available as Hashem is to us. When is Hashem available to us? Every single day, every single moment. What do I gotta do? Pray. That's all we gotta do, you know. And so he wanted to be. Another thing that happened with Yitro and the distribution of the 1,150s and 10, the rabbis said that this is where the rabbis' duties began. That's the initial when he divided, because if you see a rabbi and he has so many people, you don't see a synagogue or a teaching with thousands, like that, except our black and white brothers, But for the rest, no, we don't. We just have like a small groups, because it is better to teach the word on a small groups. So that's why they say that is the beginning of the rabbis' duty. Okay, and now when Moshe appointed the Rosh, it's not chieftains, because chief is a secular word. Actually, what he did is he appointed Rosh. That's the name in Judaism. It's a Rosh of 150 and tens. Now the word, the Torah, can go to the people quicker, because imagine Moshe standing on taking care of one matter. It will take him like 10 minutes, and then another 10 minutes. If you got a big line, when are you going to get? 3 or 4 days later. So now the word or the dictations, okay, was going to be more quickly. The matters will be resolved more quickly. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. And when this happened, like you said, the Torah is not in a chronological order. So what did he say? Oh, I am teaching the law of Hashem. Wait a minute. And then we say that, and God gave the 10 words, so that means that he already knew it, and he was teaching them. That's why the chief, the Rosh of 150 and 10 came about. So he teach them, and then they will teach to the people, and then could be judged by, because they already knew the Hashem's words. That's all I have.
Okay, Marcos, time for you to share.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
All right. This is going to be more like a short commentary than an actual drash, but I wanted to start by saying that chapter 18 feels like an inserted break from the narrative, and you guys mentioning that he may not be in chronological order kind of makes sense for this sort of break in narrative. It's like a moment for Moshe to catch up with Jethro, his father-in-law, who obviously he tries to impress by telling him his God sent 12 plagues and split the sea to save his people. We can also see a cool a reflection between the story of Israel thus far and the names of Moshe's sons. Eliezer being the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh, and Gershom meaning I have been a sojourner in a foreign land, which is where they are right now. They're in the wilderness. But I do think chapter 18 and Jethro's visits have a couple more implications that serve to humanize Moshe and remind us of his roots, but less of his Egyptian roots and more of his shepherd man roots, whose lambs probably didn't talk back as much. But also the importance of the home and the relationship between the individual, the home, and the state. So far, we've seen Moshe deal with the struggle of leading leading the people of Israel through their necessities, whether it be food and water or protection from the Amalek. But now he's dealing with the necessity of a higher social order. And in retrospect, Jethro's advice for Moshe to have a hierarchical structure of righteous men to judge for him seems kind of obvious, but Moshe has been the mouthpiece for Hashem for so long that it probably made sense for him to run things the way he did. But I also think he humanizes Moshe a lot because of this, Moshe being a great man that freed his people, he still gets called out by his father-in-law for not running his state, improperly. And he says, "So what is this that you're doing for the people from morning till evening?" And even though Jethro was looking out for Moshe, part of me thinks that he was also looking out for his daughter and his grandkids, who Moshe had just reunited with, but was spending all his time settling disputes. And keep in mind that the parasha didn't really say when he sent Sifra home also. But in my mind, I see Jethro walking with his daughter and grandkids and reminding Moshe that as much as he is a founding father for Israel, he's also a father to his kids and a husband to his wife. And I think it's good to humanize great figures because it allows for a more nuanced and realistic appreciation of their contributions. At the same time, chapter 18 shows us the relationship between Moshe, his family, and the state. He reunites with his family, so he's not the head of the house again for them, but he's also influenced to become the head judge for the people of Israel. He then gets called out by his father-in-law for not running the state properly, and changing how the state functions directly impacts how much time he has at home. And this again allows him to hearken to the words of Hashem and receive his message that inevitably influences the way the state is run. So there is this cool pattern of Moshe that you can start to notice where Moshe reunites with his family and it changes the way the state is run. Moshe goes back to his family again, this time with Yitro, and it changes how the state is run. And the new changes for him up to hearken to Hashem, and he goes up to the mountain to talk to Hashem. And again, the way the state is run is changes. And I think it's cool to see I think it's cool the way Hashem shows us the higher order of things and the importance of the home on the individual and the state, as we all know that once you get rid of the home and the family, societies kind of go downhill. And yeah, that was a little bit that was what stood out to me in the Torah portion. It really puts the home in a really like a key place because he keeps going back to and it's like a constant state of change for Moshe rather than like, oh, he's like this perfect leader. And we also saw that he struck the rock back then, so he's kind of green to being a leader, especially to the people of Israel that complained more than his previous lambs. And yeah, that was it. That was cool.
Right. Shalom.
That was great, Marcos. Thank you. Mordecai.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom, Safa.
Always miss being there in person. So there's a midrash on the. First of all, I want to say that there's a lot of teachings on especially within the Christian realm of finding the will of God. Now it's a little bit skewed because they don't have necessarily a Torah view, and there's also teachings within Judaism, books and so forth, about the same thing, finding what Hashem is saying to you. And during the Torah portion today, the 6 Aliyah specifically, Hashem gives us direct things to follow, right? And through our journey, we also received additional requirements to follow, and if we want to find the will of Hashem, we can be assured that the Torah is His will. Now it's kind of like a road, right? Hashem says, "Here's the parameters," right? And so anything within that road is within His will, per se, and I think I've heard some people that get so wrapped up in this idea of this perfect will that they pray, God, and I'm going to the grocery store, tell me where to go first. I've heard this, growing up. I prayed and God told me to go down to the 3rd aisle, and and there was a lady with a half a foot, and I'm exaggerating, but I've heard these stories, and honestly, I don't think Hashem really cares, whether we get Captain Crunch or granola, or he may want us to live right, but He gives us those choices, right? This is not a Torah issue, right? So why do I say that? Okay, so the decision that Yitro gave to Moshe was absolutely a good way to run the affairs of the nation, right? Now, Yitro, not being a Jew at the point, there's some indication that he did convert, but he was looking from a perspective of he didn't see the miracles, right? He didn't see what Moshe did. Moshe had just came back. Well, he was just about to go for 40 days and not eat or drink or go into the presence of Hashem. And so through his knowledge, he was saying, this is not good. You're going to wear yourself out. But we don't have that prescription from Hashem. We don't have Hashem saying, look, what you're doing is bad. You're going to wear yourself out, because Hashem had supernaturally infused Moshe with the ability to do what he was doing, right? And it's not bad what Yitro did. And so Moshe, respecting and seeing the effects of that, did appoint, Midrash says, 250 or so different judges, right? And so these judges became the judiciary, and became kind of they appointed things like policemen, to kind of police everything. And there was a division of a hierarchy of different judges, going from the higher levels from lower levels all the way up to Moshe. And eventually, these people, it was kind of a politics kind of situation, where you would go to your judge, and there would be kind of some warring factions. Well, I don't agree. I believe in this judge, and you go to the higher judge, and it led to our sages say to Korah, right? So it's not necessarily something bad that Moshe did or Yitro did, the advice, but it did lead to them choosing leaders who became enthralled with their leadership. And we know with the revolt of Korah, the vast majority of the people that were chosen. Now this is Midrash. This is just taken, but we can see what's actually written in the written Torah, that the leadership of the nation was basically obliterated with the 250 leaders that were killed during the revolt of Korah. And after that happened, what did the people do? They're like, "Oh, you got rid of." No, they said you killed all our leaders. How are we going to go now? We have no leaders. And Hashem did not. Hashem basically said, "Okay, take 70 people." Which was basically the start of the 250 precipitated the starting of the first Sanhedrin, and it was administered by Hashem himself. Hashem himself took the spirit of Moshe, divided it, and now all 70 plus Moshe were all given the same spirit that was on Moshe. So one thing precipitated the other, you know. And now we eventually have another Sanhedrin that will be fairs. But you know, Hashem, I think, wanted it is good. It wasn't good that what Moshe was doing, because at the end of the day, Hashem, I think, wants us all to make a decision. Read the Torah for itself. You know, we had the knowledge that we had. Well, actually, we had the laws that were given to us in our journey, right? Individual things. I think sometimes we want to go beyond a step, right? We don't want to deal with personal issues with our brothers, right? And I think Hashem is like, look, that's your own deal. You need to deal with it. Even Yeshua points out, look, there's gonna be forgiveness, but you know, you need to go and get forgiveness from your brother, you know, before you get Hashem's forgiveness, because you know that's between you and your brother, right? So I think that we have to be careful of the decisions that we make. We leave it up to Hashem. Said, you know, I've got this issue, or I'm dealing with this. Can you help me out with it? And Hashem will he'll give us the answer. You know, I think it might have been a different story if Yitro, that Moshe had went to Hashem and he said, look, Yitro gave me this advice. What do I do? And it could have precipitated that Hashem would have done the 70 elders that you know eventually would have happened. But we see this as you know, what they call 2020. You know, we in hindsight, right? You know, maybe someday somebody will write our stories, right? And they'll say, oh, he made this horrible mistake. Well, we're in the middle of the mistake, we don't see it, right? But we can look at the path of our mothers and fathers, and we can learn from it. So I just want to give that 2 cents out there. May Hashem be blessed, and may all of our efforts be blessed, and may we all bring honor and glory to Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.
I have a little bit to share on the Hebrew of the Torah portion. First, I want to go to the second Aliyah, and I noticed, which made me look it up. It says in the Chabad version of the English, it says, but you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance, God-fearers, men of truth, who hate monetary gain. Now, that's a very bad translation. It doesn't say who hate monetary gain. There's nothing wrong with earning money. It's just, you know, earning a living. In the modern Hebrew, this word, batsa, or vatsa, is greed, okay? Who hate greed. And in the JPS version, the Jewish Publication Society's version of the Tanakh, it translates it as unjust gain. There's also other verses within the Bible that use this word, and it talks about bribery. And sometimes it's translated that way here too. So it's not that God's people should hate monetary gain, but they should hate greed. They should hate bribery for sure, because it can skew our decisions in judgment. And also we should hate illegal and gain that is gained through violence and unjustly. Okay. Okay, the next part that I wanted to talk about is in the Ten Commandments. I found out that so I had a lot of time to drive all over the place this week, running different errands and taking the kids places. So I got to listen to a lot of teachings and Drashes and stuff like that. And I found out that historically, in Second Temple times, that the Ten Commandments used to be read before the Shema. It used to be part of Shacharit, the morning prayers, and it used to be recited before the Shema. And in the Talmud, it laments over this fact, and it talks about how various rabbis wanted to reinstitute the reading of the Ten Commandments, Aseret HaDibrot, and put it back in Shacharit. But then it always gave the reason, well, it was taken out because of the, I think it used the word in English, I don't know the Hebrew word or the Aramaic word is because of the, I think it was insolence of the minim. Minim is heretics. But more specifically, minim, it means like sectarian. They were heretical because they were sectarian, because they wanted to break off from greater Judaism. And that word minim, it can refer to a lot of different people. It can refer to, it could have referred to the, I forgot the term, the Samaritans. It could have referred to the later Karaites. It could have referred to a lot of different sects who in Judaism, in normative Judaism, are considered heretics. And it certainly could have also referred to the early believers who adopted anti-Torah beliefs, such as Jewish Christians or converts to Judaism through Yeshua, who thought that maybe not necessarily Judaism as we have it today, but just followers of Yeshua, non-Jews, who thought that, and at first when I heard this, I was like, oh, what could it be? And I was thinking, oh, maybe these people, maybe the Second Temple Jews, maybe they were later no longer allowed to do it because the Christians would say, oh, the law is done away with. And if you keep saying that we have to do these things, we're going to persecute you. But I think it was Rabbi Lichtenstein, who was the early Orthodox Jewish believer. He said he was explaining that the heretical belief that the early believers had was a Christian one, a very Christian one, which is that the 10 Commandments still stand and are eternal, but the rest of the Torah was done away with. And this is something that the Catholic Church teaches, for example, and the Catholic Church even teaches that, yes, you shall keep the Sabbath, but we have transferred the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And so they would look at the Shacharit and they would say, see, the 10 Commandments are special because it's recited before the Shema. It's special, we need to keep those still, but the rest of it we can do away with. And so because of that pervasive argument that they were always battling, they're like, you know what, let's just stop saying the 10 Commandments so that we can give them, at least take away that part of their fuel that they're using to spread that heresy. Okay, and then the other thing that I wanted to say is, it says right here, the second commandment. The first commandment is, I'm Hashem your God, who took you out of Egypt. The second commandment in Judaism, and I know this is different in Christian and Catholic renditions, but in Judaism, the first commandment is, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. The second commandment is, you shall not have the gods of others in my presence. And in the Hebrew, it says, Lo yiyeh lecha. There shall not be to you Elohim, gods, or mighty ones, acherim, other mighty ones, other gods, al panai. Now, this is very interesting. Al can can mean over or opposite, but al panai means my face. So it could literally say, you shall not have other gods over my face or in front of me. Okay. Don't, and of course, Hashem is everywhere. So if you have another God, it's going to be in front of him. And it says, okay. So the next part, which says, you shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness which is in the heavens above, which is on the earth below, or which is in the water beneath. That's part of the verse, but that's not the main part. I would say that's a secondary part. Okay. And someone said that idolatry, I heard someone say that idolatry is only about idols, statues that you carve. And yes, that's part of it, but there's other, and that may be idolatry, idol, right? But in Judaism, we don't say the word idolatry. We say the word avodah zarah. Avodah means work or service or worship, and zarah means foreign. So foreign worship, this is what we translate as idolatry. It's not really a good translation to say idolatry because it makes people think, oh, I don't bow down to idols. And they're like, check, I'm not an idolater, okay? But the verse is not warning us to merely not bow down in front of carved images. It's saying, do not have other gods in front of my face. And remember when the Jews, when Israel sinned against Hashem with the golden calf, they weren't worshiping a god of Egypt necessarily. They said, this is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and they're pointing to the calf. They said, this is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh who brought us out of Egypt. And when you talk to a Catholic and you say, oh, you know, why do you worship Jesus? Why do you worship these statues? They're like, we're not really worshiping this statue. We're worshiping what it represents. And, you know, Jesus represents, you know, the Father, and, you know, Mary represents the Father. And you could take away all the carved idols, it would still be avodah zarah. And even in Hinduism, a Hindu that is very, very knowledgeable, if you ask him, how many gods do you worship? As my friend asked his Hindu friend once, he said, how many gods do you worship anyway? And the Hindu man said, there's really only one true God. All the Hindu gods are just emanations of the one true God. So but is it avodah zarah? Yes. Is it idolatry? Even if you took out all the idols, it would still be foreign worship. And the way I like to define avodah zarah is worship that did not originate from the Torah. It's not sanctioned or authorized or birthed from the Torah, from Judaism. It started elsewhere and it came to us. And so there has never been anywhere in the Torah where God said, one day I'm going to send a man to you and you're going to worship him as me instead of me. No, in the giving of the commandments at Sinai, Moshe reminded them. He said, remember, when Hashem gave you these commandments, you saw no form. There was no image. We worship the invisible God. And this is the message of the Torah. And this is why we do not worship Yeshua. We worship as Yeshua worshiped. We worship the God of Yeshua. We do not worship him. He didn't come around saying, worship me. He came around and we came to planet Earth. He said, worship the Father. When it says, you know, when he says, it says in the New Testament, it's translated sometimes, he says, before Abraham was, I am. That's a bad translation. He didn't say I am. In Hebrew translation, it says, I was, meaning Yeshua was saying, before Abraham existed, I existed. I existed before Avraham. And that is no longer idolatry. It is very Jewish. The fact that the spirit of Mashiach existed at creation, and it was even conversing with Hashem, it's conversing with God, that is Judaism. But the idea that Hashem became a man and now we're supposed to worship a man, that becomes avodah zarah. There's no such thing throughout the Tanakh. In fact, it warns against it many, many times throughout the Tanakh. And this is a key difference between our congregation and why we do not consider ourselves Christians at all whatsoever. We are Jews first. We keep the Torah first. And everything in the New Testament must be filtered through these lenses. If anyone asks me, am I a Christian? The answer is no. If they ask me, do I believe in Yeshua? Yes, I believe in Yeshua. I believe in the Jewish Yeshua, not the pagan Christian one. And I also heard someone say once, you know, all you people that are trying to make a distinction between between Jesus and Yeshua, they said, you're lying. They're one and the same. They're the same person. Don't try to lie to people. There's no two people. But there is a story in Judaism about this. I forgot the names. Okay, there was a man, and he was I think he was on a bus, and he had a rabbi. He had a rebbe, and these people on the bus. I think it was a bus. I'm not sure if it was a bus. I don't remember the setting or even the time. But he was with a crowd of people. And the crowd of people were defaming this rabbi with the same name as his rabbi. I don't remember the name. Let's just call him, you know, Rabbi Shlomo. I don't remember the name, okay? They were defaming Rabbi Shlomo, and they're saying, oh, all these bad things about Rabbi Shlomo. He's this and this and that. And this man, he didn't bat an eye. He didn't argue with them. He didn't defend his rabbi. And then his friend that knew who he was and who his rabbi was, he said, how come you're not defending your rabbi? How come you're not saying, you know, defending his honor, telling them that they're wrong? He said, because they're not talking about my rabbi. Everything that they're saying is not my rabbi. That's not what my rabbi teaches. That's not what my rabbi says. That's not what my rabbi does. And he's like, so I don't have to defend him because that's not him. That's exactly how I feel about Jesus. And when they say, oh, Jesus did this and Jesus did that and blah, 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 I'll agree with them. I'll say, yes, Jesus is the Antichrist. Yes, your Jesus, he took away the one that you follow. Yes, he's the Antichrist. He did away with the Torah, blah, blah, blah. Whoever that Jesus is, and that's who you follow, sure, that's Jesus. And I'm against him, and I don't believe in Jesus, and I don't follow Jesus. I follow the Jewish Yeshua. Jesus is a myth. When they say Jesus is not a real person, yes, he's not a real person. He is a myth. That person that all the Christians say he did this and he did that, and he took away the Torah, that is a myth. I don't believe in that Jesus. That Jesus is a false God. He is an idol. The Jewish Yeshua is not that. The Jewish Yeshua upheld the Torah, and he gave all the glory to his Father in heaven. And he came here to restore the Torah, give a correct interpretation of it for all people in his time and forward. It even says that he preached to the souls who were in hell, okay? That they would, maybe some, that's very interesting to me. It says that he preached to the souls in hell. That's not something that a lot of Christians talk about. But I believe that a lot of people who may be suffering in hell now and in the future, a lot of them are there because of all the lies they learned throughout their life about what God is and what God does and what God requires of them. And so that led them on a very bad path. And therefore they deserved hell. But hell in Judaism is not this eternal torment, as Rav Safa always likes to remind us. Hell in Judaism is a place of purification and punishment, but Hashem created all of us. Why would he create the majority of us to suffer in hell forever? That is also, I don't follow that God. That is a tyrant in my eyes. That's not the God of Judaism. That's not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Death is asleep. And any torment that he gives to his creation, that's going to be for our purification. That's going to be for to cut away all of the bad things that are not truly us. Because when he made mankind, he said, it is good. So that is who we truly are, the good divine spirit and soul within us. And these commandments, and that's another thing people say is, oh, no, we don't have to keep those commandments. We only have to keep these ones, the ones that have to do with God and the ones that have to do with our fellow man. Those are the ones we have to keep. We have to keep the 10 commandments. But that's what all the commandments are about. The ones that we don't understand, those have to do with our relationship with God. Because we're saying, okay, God, I don't understand what this commandment means, but I'm going to do it because you said so and I trust you. That's all of the Torah. All the Torah has to do either with our relationship with God or our relationship with other people. And if you cast off any commandment of the Torah, you're either spiting God or you're spiting man somehow. Last thing I wanted to say is about the concept of hating and loving. And hating and loving in Hebrew, the way I understand it, it's very different. That verb ahav, love, love the Lord your God. It's also the word for like. So when you want to say, I like Coke, you say, you use that word, ani ohev Coca-Cola. It means I like Coke. It's the same word. It's not a different word. And so if you take that in opposite, you either love something or you hate something, you say, I don't like that, right? And so if you love God, it means you also like him, which means you want him around, you like his personality, you like his commandments, you like the things that he does, you like his words. And if you hate God, that means you don't want him around. You don't want to follow his commandments. You don't like the things of God. And so if you, so then it makes sense, right? And that he visits our iniquity if we hate him. Well, of course, that's also a very natural consequence of hating God. You hate God, you hate his ways, you do wicked things. Of course, punishment is going to come upon you. Okay, it makes sense, right? If you look at it that way. So I just wanted to say, let's love God. Let's keep his commandments, all of them. And remember, when we hate our neighbor, we're also hating God. So in reality, it's all the commandments are about loving God. There's not, some are about loving your neighbor and some are about loving God. They're all about loving God.
So like, I get how Catholics might mistakenly like worship Jesus, but Mary, she was just a normal human. Catholics like worship Mary.